Hey everybody, and welcome to BK's Bullets. This is my spoiler review for Star Wars The Last Jedi. Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I am your host, Brent Casina, and today we are talking Star Wars The Last Jedi. Spoilers, if you haven't seen it already, please go see it. I normally try not to do spoilers in my movie reviews, and there's just no way we can talk about this movie without having spoilers. So, if you haven't seen the movie, press watch for later, and come back to us when you have. Alright, now that you're gone, or now that you're back, rather, did you like this movie? I don't know if I will ever really enjoy another Star Wars movies in this episode saga again. 2 years ago, I saw the Force Awakens with my family, mom, dad, brother. Star Wars has never been a huge thing for us, but we did go see all the prequels when they were released and see the re-releases in like 97, 98, 99, or whatever that was for the extra CGI for the original trilogy. Growing up, we had a VHS set of the Star Wars trilogy in our house that we watched, frequently, often. But we're standing in the movie theater, waiting to get in line for the film. We saw it on IMAX 2 years ago. I'm talking about Force Awakens here. And my brother goes, I heard this was a lot like Episode 4. Ruined the fucking movie for me. I mean, don't get me wrong, but going in, I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I enjoyed Episode 7. I really, really liked it. I thought it was a good movie, but I wish I didn't have that thought in the back of my mind for Episode 7 that I did that, this really is just like Episode 4. And it kind of took it away from me a little bit. Now, Star Wars The Last Jedi Episode 8. It was okay. So let's kind of put this in perspective here. In terms of like filmmaking quality, this movie is good. It's shot well. It looks well. The acting is good. The characters have things to do. I think just narratively, in the long-term picture of Star Wars, this movie falls apart. So to take the narrative structure and like shove that aside, everything else but that, the story, is good about this movie. There are some good action set pieces. The opening scene with the starfighters and the pseudo Star Destroyer and Poe Dameron and stuff, that was great. I love that. Up until the bombers showed up. And the bombers are just like these super slow tugboat things, and it's like, did you guys not remember you have Y-wings? There's an A-wing that pops up right in the beginning of that scene. And you're like, hey, a blue A-wing, look at that. And then A-wing's like, hey, I've never heard of a Y-wing before, but we're gonna guard these Zeppelin motherfuckers going, and we're just gonna all blow up except for one. And that person's gonna sacrifice themselves. That's a big thing in this movie. Self-sacrificial lambs. I'm just going for the slaughter to save everybody else, because that's the heroic thing to do. I mean, that stuff works when you've built up a character, and they make that decision. There was a moment with Finn where I was like, are they going to do it? I'm okay if they do it, but they didn't do it. And when they didn't do it and somebody saved him, I was like, why didn't they fucking just kill him? Man, Rogue One was a good movie in that it built up these characters, and when they sacrificed themselves, you felt something. At the end of that movie, you were like, yes, yes. I liked those characters. I knew what their purpose was, and they served it, and there they go. But in this movie, there's, 4 or 5 characters that just off themselves or sacrifice themselves that you either don't care about or you care enough about to be like, that's kind of okay. And it was too much. I think there was too much of that in this movie, whereas one at the beginning and one at the end might have been okay. But, 5, 6, 7 characters doing this thing in this movie just did it a disservice. So, let's get to the story. Again, spoilers if you haven't, watched it already. I already gave my spoiler warning, but this movie just throws away the most interesting characters it has. Snoke in the beginning of this movie is menacing, is threatening. He's way better villain than Kylo Ren, the big crybaby we all met in Episode 7. He's still a crybaby in this movie, and he almost gets to be likable, and then they take it away from you. They're like, nope, we don't want to do that with that guy. He's going to be the legit villain, or just going to go the way you think this should go. Back to Snoke. Snoke's really cool. He's really interesting. He's really menacing and threatening. And then they just off him out of nowhere, and you're like, what is the deal? Did they just do that? Really? And then the fight afterwards, I was like, there was no threat to me, because I know that Kylo Ren and Rey can probably take all these stupid guards out, and no problem. There was no threat. Snoke was a real threat, and they took him out like it didn't even matter. And who's Snoke, by the way? Mark Hamill, or Luke Skywalker, says that Snoke had already turned Kylo Ren when Kylo Ren was a student. So how exactly did that happen, and who is he, and how does he have Force powers? He's got Force lightning. He's got the Force pull and push bullshit, and it just doesn't matter. They don't offer up no answers to that question for sure. They're just like, nope, you don't need to worry about Snoke. Don't worry about him. He's the most interesting character in this movie, but it doesn't matter. Like, it's not, was he a teacher at Jedi Academy? Nobody knows. Doesn't matter. Was Luke teaching 14 kids all by himself? Doesn't matter. And what they did with Luke is the other major crime for this movie. When Mark Hamill was doing promotions for this movie a few months ago, he said, at first when I read the script, I did not like the way Rian Johnson wrote it. Rian Johnson's the director of this movie, and he's the writer of this movie. So there's no one to blame except Rian Johnson and maybe Kathleen Kennedy for saying yes. But when I read that, I was like, oh, I don't know. Because Mark Hamill, he is Star Wars. He gets it. He gets out why the fans love him. He gets why the fans love him for being the Joker. He gets why the fans love him for being Luke. He gets it. He's grown up with fandom, being a part of his life for a long time. So he gets us. And when he said that, I was like, I don't know. But, I'll place my faith in them. I will be, a good, loyal fanboy or whatever. And then it just... We should have trusted Luke Skywalker the first time when he said there was something off with this movie. Because there is something off with this movie. It doesn't make sense story-wise, and it's just... There's no more characters to work on. There's no more characters. Nope. Just, hope you like Rey and Finn and Poe Dameron. Hope you like them. That's all you get. Unfortunately, Carrie Fisher died after she made this movie. So her story is done, unfortunately. They're just going to find a way to write her off in the next movie. Since she survived this one, I think they should have gone back and re-edited something to give Leia an ending. But instead, she has no ending in this trilogy anymore, which is unfortunate, I think. She deserves much better, the actress and the character. Luke gets an ending in this movie, which he totally didn't deserve. We spent the whole movie, Episode 7, building up to where is Luke Skywalker. And we finally found him, and yes, I understand that he's not the person we met, and that's fine. But when he finally comes in to save the day, it's from millions of miles away with a power we didn't know he had, and it doesn't matter in the end because he's not really there. Okay, I'll buy that. Okay, you made, Kylo Ren look like an idiot. That's fine. You want to turn this toddler even more angry. That's up to you. But to have him die at the end of the movie and just pull a Ben Kenobi and just flop away? No. No, man, you don't get that because you did not give us the Luke moment that we wanted. You didn't give us a real reunion with Han. You didn't do that in the last movie. You didn't give us a real reunion with Leia because he wasn't even there. Just, I don't know, man. This movie looked great going in, and coming out, I'm just like, oof. A lot of missteps. They got a lot of ground to make up for, and I think the Star Wars fandom, once they get out of this movie this weekend, they're going to come back with a vengeance, and they're going to rip this thing apart, because there are so many holes and so many disservices to fandom. Normally I don't want to say, you should service the fans, But there's something I told my friend the other day. It's like, know your audience and know whom you're serving. And at this point, Star Wars 35 years in, your audience is the fans. You're serving the fans. Everybody in the world is practically a Star Wars fan. And for you to take things that they love and throw them away for no single reasons and give us interesting things like Snoke and throw them away for no reason, it just gives us nothing to look forward for in the next movie, and I think you'll see a backlash. The next Star Wars movie we have coming out is Solo, and that comes out in May. And that movie was reshot practically from the beginning because they fired their directors. They didn't like the direction they were going in. They didn't like the humor in Solo. Did nobody watch this movie? There's way too much humor in this movie than there should have been. And they fired those guys for their humor. It seems like the Star Wars family has no direction. And that's a problem. And it's very clear that when they wrote Episode 7, I remember J.J. Abrams saying something in the interview saying that, he wrote it. And that's it. And he left off threads for people to pick up and stuff like that. But there was no overarching plan that they came up with in the first place. Because, he didn't know what was going to happen in 7. He didn't know what's going to happen in 8. He doesn't know what happens in 9. And it's clear that nobody at Lucasfilm knows what happens in 9 anymore. They have a story team with 20 people. What are they doing? I don't know. Obviously, they're not planning for the future because they just threw away all the interesting threads that were there in this movie left over from 7. They just cut them all, answered all the questions, raised a nobody. Who fucking cares? The more I talk about this movie, the more upset I get because I realize what a disservice it is, and it's almost spitting in our faces as Star Wars fans. I understand trying to do something different and trying to have the middle movie be the last movie, but you don't earn anything that you do in this movie, and that's where it falls apart for me. So I hope you enjoyed Star Wars Last Jedi, or enjoy the next one. At least we have the originals and Rogue One and Star Wars Episode 7, as much as of a clone it is for Episode 4. And the Clone Wars animated series is still the best Star Wars stuff we got. And you know why that was good? Because they knew where they began, and they knew where they ended. And they had to bridge that gap. And there probably was some sort of a plan. There was an endpoint in mind. And since there's no endpoint in mind for this trilogy, there's no way to bring it all together. So, all in all, Star Wars Last Jedi, 2.5 stars out of 5 for me. I'll see you guys in the funny pages.